Stop for a second, because what I'm about to tell you is not rumor, not fan talk, and not clickbait. A statement has exploded behind closed doors inside the Raiders organization, and it involves the one name that still shakes the entire NFL, Tom Brady. Not as a player. Not as a mentor. But as someone with real decision-making power. Yes, power. This idea didn't come from fans or social media. It came from a major voice at ESPN, and it has already started dividing people inside league circles. This is about control, influence, and the future direction of the Raiders franchise. Before we go any further, if you're a real Raider fan who wants the truth before it hits the headlines, take 1 second right now, hit subscribe, smash the like button, and turn on the bell icon. You don't want to miss what's coming next. Now let's talk reality. The quarterback position has become the heaviest weight dragging this team down year after year. Every season brings hope, and every season ends the same way, disappointment. In 2025, expectations were sky high, but they crashed fast. The plan at quarterback didn't work. The solution they trusted failed. And just like that, playoff dreams disappeared almost before the season even began. A brutal 2-12 record didn't just end the year, it forced the franchise to face the truth. At this point, there's no quick fix. No shortcut. No miracle trade. The only real path forward is the 2026 NFL Draft. And here's where things get interesting. The Raiders aren't scrambling, they're positioned. One of the earliest picks is already locked in, and that changes everything. This isn't just another draft pick. This is a chance to reset the franchise, to choose the quarterback who could define the next decade of Raiders football. But here's the real question nobody is asking out loud yet: who should be trusted to make that call? Because one decision, one name on draft night, could either save this franchise or sink it even deeper. And that's exactly where this Tom Brady conversation suddenly becomes dangerous, fascinating, and very real. Stay with me, because what comes next explains why this idea makes sense, and why it's shaking the NFL to its core. Now let's talk about the name that's quietly climbing to the very top of every serious draft board. Fernando Mendoza. A quarterback who didn't just play college football in 2025, he owned it. Week after week, he looked calm, sharp, and in full command, like someone already preparing for Sundays. Every big moment, every high-pressure snap, he delivered. That season wasn't just impressive, it was dominant. Mendoza didn't rack up stats for highlight reels alone. He led. He controlled games. He turned Indiana into a force no one could ignore. An undefeated run. A Big Ten championship. A spot in the college football playoff. And when the year was over, there was no debate left. He walked away with the Heisman Trophy and the label of the most NFL-ready quarterback in the country. What separates Mendoza isn't just arm talent or mobility. It's his presence. Teammates followed him. Defenses feared him. He made the difficult throws look routine and the impossible plays look planned. That's why scouts aren't calling him a project. They're calling him a franchise quarterback. For the Raiders, this is the kind of opportunity that almost never comes at the right time. Holding a potential top pick in a draft with a quarterback like Mendoza changes the entire conversation. Passing on a player with this combination of skill, confidence, and leadership would feel like turning away from a lifeline. And Raider Nation knows it. The buzz isn't hype, it's hope. What really turned heads, though, wasn't just what Mendoza did on the field. It was what he said when the spotlight was brightest. He talked about discipline over fame. Belief over noise. Commitment over shortcuts. That message hit home because it sounds exactly like what this franchise has been searching for: a steady leader, not a savior complex. Mendoza isn't being talked about as just the next quarterback. He's being talked about as a reset button. The kind of player who doesn't just fill a position, but changes the direction of an entire organization. And if the Raiders are serious about ending the quarterback chaos once and for all, this name might be impossible to ignore. That's what makes this moment feel different. Mendoza isn't just talented, he's wired the right way. He leads without forcing it, commands respect without noise, and plays with a mindset that matches exactly what the Raiders have been missing for years. Drafting him wouldn't simply fill a hole on the roster. It would send a message. A message that this franchise is done drifting and ready to define a new era. But here's the uncomfortable truth, finding the quarterback is only half the battle. The real power lies with whoever makes the final call. And that's why the conversation keeps circling back to one name, Tom Brady. As the 2025 season continues to unravel, the spotlight isn't just on the field anymore. It's behind the scenes. Brady, now a minority owner of the Raiders, has already influenced the organization from the background. But many are starting to ask a bigger question: should he step further in? Should his voice carry real weight when it comes to shaping the future of this team? This isn't just fan speculation. One of ESPN's loudest voices, Stephen A. Smith, has pushed this idea into the open. His argument is simple but explosive: if the Raiders are struggling this badly, why wouldn't they lean on the greatest football mind the game has ever seen? Brady isn't just a legend, he's someone who understands winning, pressure, locker rooms, and quarterback evaluation at a level few humans ever will. Of course, there's a catch. Brady currently holds a massive broadcasting role at Fox, earning more than most coaches ever will. Stepping away from that comfort to take on real responsibility with a struggling franchise wouldn't be easy. It would be risky. It would be messy. And that's exactly why this debate matters. Stephen A. didn't dance around it. He made it clear, if Brady is truly part of this organization, now is the time to prove it. Because with the Raiders sitting at rock bottom, playing it safe is no longer an option. The decisions made next, about power, influence, and trust, could determine whether this franchise finally rises again, or stays trapped where it is. Stephen A. Smith made one thing clear: walking away from a massive broadcasting career isn't realistic. But here's the twist: Tom Brady doesn't have to leave that world to change the Raiders. He doesn't need a headset on Sundays or a whistle on the sideline to matter. What the Raiders are missing isn't noise, it's direction. And if there's one person who understands how a championship organization is built, layer by layer, it's Brady. 7 Super Bowl rings don't come from luck. They come from standards. From discipline. From knowing when to take risks and when to shut them down. That's why the idea of Brady stepping into a stronger football operations role doesn't sound crazy, it sounds logical. Especially for a franchise that keeps making the same mistakes at quarterback and paying the price every single season. Right now, leadership inside the building is under a microscope. Draft decisions, roster planning, long-term vision, none of it feels settled. That's where Brady's influence could change everything. He's lived through winning cultures. He's seen what works and what destroys teams from the inside. His voice alone could reshape how decisions are made. Fans already feel his impact just knowing he's connected to the organization. But imagine if that presence went beyond ownership meetings. Imagine Brady helping define what a Raiders quarterback should look like, how the locker room should function, and what accountability actually means. That's the kind of shift that turns potential into results. The Raiders haven't been completely empty of talent, they've just failed to unlock it. And that's the most frustrating part. This team has flashed ability, only to fall apart when it matters. That's why this conversation isn't just hypothetical anymore. As 2025 continues to test this franchise, the front office is being forced into hard choices. Safe decisions won't fix this. Bold ones might. And if the Raiders are serious about changing their future, trusting the vision of the greatest winner the game has ever seen might be the most important decision they make. So the real question hangs in the air: would Tom Brady actually be ready for a challenge like this? Because if his influence ever grows beyond the title and into real decisions, the change wouldn't be subtle. It would show up on the field immediately. And real change starts with balance, something the Raiders clearly don't have right now. Look at the defense. Max Crosby has been fighting battles by himself. Night after night, he's been the lone source of pressure, carrying a unit that simply hasn't done enough. One star can't hold up an entire front seven. Without support, even greatness gets worn down. That's why any true rebuild has to go beyond quarterback talk. The defense needs help, and fast. That's where the 2026 draft becomes more than just important. It becomes decisive. This is the moment where direction turns into identity. One name already surfacing in serious conversations is Robin Bain Jr. out of Miami. He isn't the loudest prospect. He doesn't win with hype. He wins with effort, discipline, and relentless pressure. He plays the kind of football that wears offenses down snap after snap. Bain may not look like the prototype pass rusher, but turn on the tape and the production speaks for itself. He collapses pockets. He disrupts timing. He forces mistakes. And paired with Crosby, he could finally give the Raiders a defensive foundation instead of a single pillar holding everything up. This is what makes the next phase so critical. A potential franchise quarterback. A possible power shift behind the scenes. A defense begging for reinforcements. None of these decisions can exist in isolation anymore. They're connected. And how the Raiders handle this stretch, especially the 2026 draft, will define whether this team finally turns the page or stays stuck chasing what could have been. The path is there. The pieces are visible. The only thing left is courage. And whether the people in charge are ready to make the moves that change everything. Stay with me, because the next decision could be the one that reshapes the Raiders for years to come.